What is going on, Panthers fans? I have some urgent news about our defense that you absolutely need to hear right now. Everyone is talking about our massive upgrades this offseason, but there is one specific position that could either solidify our unit as elite or become the fatal flaw opposing coaches exploit all year long. A key starter is stepping into a new reduced role, and the pressure is officially on. Will this tactical shift fix our biggest weakness from last season or leave us exposed? You won't want to miss this analysis. Smash that like button, subscribe, and drop a comment below. The defensive identity of the Panthers is undergoing a massive transformation in 2026, and at the heart of this shift is the evolution of Trevin Wallace. Last year, the linebacker group faced significant scrutiny, often being labeled as one of the least effective units in the NFL. During that challenging season, neither Trevin Wallace nor Christian Rozeboom proved equipped to handle the heavy responsibilities of a primary linebacker role. While Trevin Wallace displayed flashes of promise when healthy and served as a functional leader for the defense, the weight of being the main stopper was clearly immense. Fast forward to the current offseason, and the dynamic for the entire organization has fundamentally shifted with the major free agent acquisition of Devin Lloyd. This arrival changes everything for the depth chart and, specifically, for Trevin Wallace. He is no longer forced into the spotlight as the defensive captain or the go-to playmaker. Instead, the pressure has been entirely lifted off his shoulders. By transitioning into a secondary role, Trevin Wallace is set to play second fiddle to an all-pro talent, making him one of the primary beneficiaries of the team's aggressive defensive overhaul. Even though he has moved down the hierarchy of importance, we have ranked him 24th on our list of the most important players for the Panthers this year. The reasoning is clear. While his responsibilities are reduced, his individual performance remains a pivotal factor that could either solidify or undermine the defensive scheme. As the team looks to move past the struggles of the previous year, the narrative surrounding the linebacker room is finally centered on balance. It is time for the unit to move forward and, as the fans always say, they must keep pounding to reach their goals. The strategic approach taken by the Panthers during this offseason has been nothing short of comprehensive. The organization effectively addressed almost every major hole in the roster, bringing in fresh talent to bolster the edge rushers, interior linemen, cornerbacks, and safety positions. With such a massive influx of talent, the team has successfully shored up nearly every facet of the defensive unit. However, as training camp approaches, the focus now shifts toward the final few positions that could potentially see further upgrades or competition. While the safety position remains a subject of intrigue, with a competitive camp battle brewing between Nick Scott, Zakey Wheatley, and Lathan Ransom, the linebacker situation has reached a state of relative stability. Specifically, the second linebacker position opposite the newly acquired Devin Lloyd belongs to Trevin Wallace. Given the current lack of significant depth behind him on the roster, it is highly unlikely that any other challenger will displace him from that role. This security gives Trevin Wallace a clear path to focus entirely on his assignments, rather than worrying about the security of his starting spot. The fact that the organization did not force further changes at this specific position suggests a level of confidence in the current setup. Nevertheless, the reality remains that for the Panthers to be successful, every player must execute their role perfectly. With the season fast approaching, the spotlight is firmly on whether this specific defensive configuration can hold up against the high-octane offenses they are scheduled to face. The chemistry between Devin Lloyd and Trevin Wallace will be the defining factor in determining if this unit can finally shed the labels that plagued them throughout the previous year. Everything depends on how these pieces fit together under the new defensive scheme. Why does this matter right now for the Panthers? The answer lies in the harsh reality of the current NFL landscape, where offensive coordinators are becoming increasingly sophisticated in their play calling. The Panthers are slated to face a brutal schedule filled with elite offensive minds, including coaching strategists like Ben Johnson, Kellen Moore, Matt LaFleur, and Kevin O'Connell. These coaches are experts at identifying the weak link in any defensive formation and exploiting it relentlessly. For opposing offenses, the secondary linebacker spot, the position held by Trevin Wallace, represents a potential soft spot in the armor. While Trevin Wallace is not inherently a poor player, he lacks the extensive NFL experience and proven track record at this level that would otherwise discourage opposing quarterbacks from testing him. Coaches know that attacking a linebacker is often a more viable path to moving the chains than challenging a high-level safety or an elite cornerback. Therefore, the efficiency of the entire defensive unit could hinge on how well Trevin Wallace manages these inevitable challenges. If he can leverage his reduced role to perform efficiently within a much better supporting cast, the defense could become a formidable unit. Conversely, if he continues to show the same vulnerabilities that limited the team's production last year, those brilliant opposing offensive minds will find that chink in the armor and exploit it repeatedly throughout the game. This matters because even a generally solid defense can be picked apart if one position is consistently failing to execute. The depth at linebacker is thin, meaning the margin for error is razor thin for the defense. Whether Trevin Wallace succeeds or struggles will likely determine if the Panthers' defense remains a standard unit or evolves into one of the league's truly elite groups. The role of Trevin Wallace has effectively shifted from being the centerpiece of the defense to becoming a critical supporting actor. This change is entirely due to the acquisition of Devin Lloyd, who brings a proven all-pro pedigree to the field. By stepping into this secondary role, Trevin Wallace is no longer tasked with reading every offensive formation or directing the front seven under extreme duress. Instead, he has the luxury of playing alongside a linebacker who draws the primary focus of the opposing offensive line and play callers. This structural change is designed to simplify his responsibilities, allowing him to focus on speed, gap integrity, and play recognition without the heavy burden of leadership hanging over his head. While his role has been minimized in terms of strategic necessity, his importance has not necessarily diminished in terms of game impact. Because the defense is counting on a significant improvement in efficiency, the individual production of Trevin Wallace is a variable that the front office is clearly monitoring. If the team's revamped defensive front, including the new additions on the edge and the interior, creates enough pressure, it should logically provide Trevin Wallace with more opportunities to make plays in space. This potential for an increased number of clean defensive snaps is exactly why there is hope that his output will be better than his previous statistics suggest. However, the expectations remain realistic. He is not being asked to be a superstar. He is being asked to be a reliable component of a cohesive unit. The success of this transition will be a key storyline as the team maneuvers through the early part of the season. His development, or lack thereof, will ultimately signal whether the defensive overhaul is a complete success or a partial one. Looking ahead to the upcoming season, the performance of Trevin Wallace stands as a fascinating test case for the team's overall defensive strategy. While the unit as a whole will be good regardless of his individual output, given the significant upgrades across the other positions, the difference between a good defense and a great defense will likely come down to his play. With the extremely difficult schedule that the Panthers are set to endure, those fine margins matter significantly. The team needs every position to function at a high level to compete with the top-tier offenses they are scheduled to face. The potential outcome of the season hangs in this balance. If Trevin Wallace struggles, the defense could find itself in a vulnerable position where they are forced to adjust their coverage or rely more heavily on their safeties to compensate for linebacker lapses. This, in turn, could impact the aggressiveness of the entire scheme. On the other hand, if he thrives, the defense will gain a new level of versatility, allowing the coaching staff to get more creative with their defensive packages. He is, in essence, a swing factor for the entire unit. He has been given the perfect environment to succeed: a better roster, a more experienced partner in Devin Lloyd, and a reduced level of responsibility. The stage is set for him to prove his worth in the NFL. Regardless of the outcome, the organization is clearly betting that the collective strength of the new roster will be enough to elevate the performance of every individual, including their primary linebacker prospect. As the players take the field, the narrative of the 2026 season for the Panthers will be built on how well these individuals rise to their new challenges and hold the line against a very tough schedule.